Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. If we have not had the chance to meet, I'm Dr. Breggy, your superintendent, and I'm very excited to be joined today by our principals, and I already see so many teachers also in the room, some of the leadership team and cabinet, and even some of our board members. So welcome to all of you. I really appreciate you making the time to be here today. I know we've done this format before in the past and it's been very successful, so it's great to see some of you rejoining us. The partnership is so important moving forward, and the communication has to be varied and it has to be frequent, and we need your partnership with that, so thank you. I just want to let everybody know just a couple of things. First of all, we are recording the meeting. Just want to let people know that so that you're aware of that. If people were not able to attend the meeting, we do want to have a place where people can go back and they can pick up on the conversation if they weren't able to join us live. If you are not comfortable at all being on camera, then please go ahead and turn your camera off. We're going to be doing questions through the chat room, so they are anonymous. So if you want to send in your question through the chat room, please feel free to do so. And then if you would prefer to have your camera off, that's completely up to you. Our moderator today will be Rebecca Starkins, and she is our fabulous Director of Public Relations for our district. Your questions will be directed to the most appropriate person, and then they will be speaking on behalf of the district. We may even, a couple of us may even jump in. I know that we're eager to have our teachers also be involved in the conversation as well. Due to the combination of both Hawthorne and Horace Mann, we've allocated about 90 minutes for our conversation today. And we respect the time that everyone's putting in, so we're going to jump right in just a few minutes. We should be finishing up right at about 12 noon. And just a couple of things just to keep things on track and just to provide a little structure and framework to our conversation. And if everybody could please just mute yourself unless you've been asked to unmute yourself. You're going to be asked to just enter a question into the chat room. And then your question, again, it's not public, and it goes directly to the moderator. And you'll be called upon to unmute yourself to ask the question. If you have follow-up questions, we ask that you put them in separately so that you're not putting in 7 at one time. We want to be respectful and try to get to as many people, and we'll keep going all the way till 90 minutes. But if you could do your questions just one at a time, that would be great. Keep in mind just a couple of things too, that this is the elementary version of our virtual chat today. And then we finished a middle school chat earlier today, and then we have a high school chat at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And the other thing that we do ask is that if you have child-specific information, that be asked at a separate time with an administrator or a teacher, so that we can keep this as informative as possible with everybody in the room. Please be aware too that things are changing every day. I'm in contact with the Public Health Office of LA County at least once a day. So what we talk about today is what we know as of right now. So let's go ahead and get started. If you want to start entering questions into the chat room, we'll just jump right in. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Good morning, everyone. As Dr. Breggy mentioned, my name is Rebecca Starkins. I am the Director of PR for the district. We're going to start with a couple of things to lay some groundwork of things that may have shifted between our last conversation and today. Our principals, Mr. Bugby and Ms. Kaber, are going to introduce a few teachers and themselves. But I'm also going to ask Ms. Kaber, please, to describe your role now within the ILC and why that has shifted a little bit from maybe the contact person being Mr. Seaman, who is with us, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Education, and how your role has developed now through the ILC. So we'll start with you, Ms. Kaber, and then if we could introduce our teachers, that would be great.
Great, good morning. Hi, it's so nice to see everyone. I'll start a little bit with ILC. I've been working really closely with Mr. Seaman, who's on this call. I think. And we've coordinated all the ILC, but now in order to make sure that the elementary students who are in ILC are as consistent with Horace Mann and Hawthorne, that we asked for some more control over the ILC, and I'll be supervising the ILC teachers and the things that happen in ILC. So if you have an ILC student, I'm your administrator to contact, even if you're normally a Horace Mann parent or family, and I will have all the information for you and be able to answer any questions that you might have. So as we answer questions today, I'm happy to answer all of those questions. There are so many of my teachers that are here. I want to thank you so much for being here. Ms. Citizen, Ms. Timmerman, Ms. Ziskin, Ms. Fetterman, Ms. Gunhines, Ms. Whitney, Mr. Painter's here, Ms. Nation's here, Mr. Weddle's here. I did ask 3 specific teachers that I want to allow to introduce themselves to be part of the conversation. So Ms. Withorn, Mrs. Withorn is here, Ms. Erickson is here, and Ms. Hemphill is here. So will you 3 just unmute yourselves and say hi, so maybe your face comes up?
Hi, everybody. I'm Mrs. Whitthorne, and I am the 5th grade teacher here at Hawthorne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Candace Hemphill, and I am 3rd grade at Hawthorne.
And I'm Miss Erickson. I teach 2nd grade at Hawthorne.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you to everybody and the whole staff for being here. And I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Bugby.
Hi, everyone. I'm Craig Bugby, the principal here at Horace Mann Elementary School. We have some special teachers visiting us that will be answering questions. When I call out your name, can you just do me a favor, unmute your mic, say hello, tell us what grade you teach. First, we have Afi Delajani.
Hi, I'm Afi Delajani. I'm 3rd grade teacher at Horace Mann.
Thank you. Miss Goldstein.
Hi, Annette Goldstein, TK Horace Mann.
And Heather Subin.
Hi, Heather Subin, 4th grade at Horace Mann.
And I'm sure we have some other people on here, but those are the teachers that will be here to answer questions. Ms. Starkins, quick question for you. Do you want me to talk about the staffing changes that have happened over the past few days, or do you want me to wait for that?
Sure, why not?
Okay, let's do it. All right, so Horace Mann people, very important. Our numbers have dropped significantly. I'm assuming due to the pandemic. I know a lot of families have returned to their home countries, and I know a lot of families here at Horace Mann could not afford to stay in Beverly Hills. So our numbers have dropped more than 50 people. So we have had to, in the past, I believe Wednesday, we had to dissolve a kindergarten class, a 1st grade class, and a 4th grade class. So we have some movement of teachers. So our kinder team is still one solid team. It's just that one of them, Miss Vance, has volunteered to do the ILC. So kinder is all the same staff. It's just that one of them is teaching ILC. 2nd grade, still same staff. 3rd grade, we still have 6 3rd grade teachers, but Miss Stott has volunteered to move to the ILC. 4th grade is an interesting one. 4th grade, we still have Mrs. Woodring, Mrs. Subin, Mrs. Varela volunteered to move to the ILC. So we have a new teacher to Horace Mann who was at Hawthorne last year. Miss Caber, she taught kinder last year?
Yes, she taught kinder at Hawthorne last year, but the 2 previous years she taught 4th.
Thank you. Oh, perfect. So we have Deanne Wong, who's not with us today, I don't believe, will be teaching 4th grade, and our 5th grade team, same as last year. I always like to point out, I like having these because I don't get to see your faces right now. It's nice to see so many new faces, and I don't want to say many old faces. We'll say familiar faces. And I also love to point out that I have a good friend that I've known for years who will be joining the Horace Mann parent family. Steve, good to see you.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to get started. Thank you. So our first question comes from, and please forgive me and do correct me when I mispronounce your name for everybody who this happens to. I apologize. Kristen Galaraja, would you please go ahead and unmute your microphone? This question is about the ILC, so Ms. Cabra is going to answer it.
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Kristen Galarraga. Yeah, we are in the ILC option. So I know we just received our devices, but kind of wanting to get a little bit more clarification on how the day looks for the ILC option in terms of the balance of live instruction versus independent work during the day. I know we received kind of like the block schedule of the weekly class cutouts pertaining to subject, but I just, in terms of getting my head wrapped around how the day looks, what does that look like with live instruction versus this child's independent work?
I can answer it, and Mr. Siemens here, so if you feel like you want to jump in, go ahead, but I think I'm okay. So the day is going to look like an 8:30 a.m. check-in with everyone, with the whole class. It'll be a morning meeting with some social emotional work. And then there'll be about 4 blocks of instruction through the day, probably about 9, 10, and 11 and 11:30, with some independent work sort of time in between. So while the live at BHUSD looks like the kids are on camera all the day and they're really connected to their teacher throughout the day, the first word in ILC is independent. So we want to make sure that there's more independent time, and that they will have individual appointments following lunch. So you'll know who your teacher is depending on the grade level. You should already be able to see that in Aries. And then that teacher will set up individual appointment times that will be consistent. So it might be a 2 o'clock on Tuesday appointment and a 1 o'clock on Thursday appointment, so that they're working on whatever is specifically needed for your specific student, both in helping to see where that independent workflow is going, but also to like reteach anything or to front load before the next assignment.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Christina Ogneva. Would you please go ahead and unmute yourself? And this question I'm going to direct to Ms. Chisholm, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services. It's about vacations and taking classes from different countries.
Hi, good morning. We're actually in Spain right now. So my main question is, can we still take classes or do we have to be present physically in US? We still have the same address, but we're currently on vacation in Spain. Do we absolutely have to come back on August 18 when the first class starts, or we can take our time and just take classes from here?
So good morning. We just actually had this conversation with our Board of Education last night. So there are some parameters that will have to be established to ensure that you're able to access the educational program here at BHUSD. So I would ask that you give my office a call, and we can move forward with you in those subjects. But as long as you are still a resident of Beverly Hills, we'll be able to help support you through the ILC.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Emily Fialho in relation to the structure of Fridays. Either principal, please jump in for this one. Emily, please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hi, wow. My last name's hard, sorry. Fialho. Yeah, I just wanted to know the expectation. I know it's basically staff should be allowed to not log into students, for example, I know on Fridays. I just don't know the expectation specifically for the lower grades. If it's kind of up to each teacher, or if we need to, I don't know, basically what the plan is. Also, if certain parents, for example, wanted to combine, you know, have a couple kids over and do like independent study at their house, and they have multiple kids that have different teachers maybe in the same grade. I don't know. It was just a thought that I had to help other parents out, if that was even something that might be okay. So I just want to know the expectation.
Because there actually has been a shift from it being Monday to Thursdays to Monday to Fridays. So Mr. Bugby, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
Clearly I missed an email. Sorry.
No worries.
Hi, Emily. Do me a favor, clarify your question. I'm not sure what the exact question is.
Okay, I feel really dumb now because I thought school was just Monday through Thursday. So now I'm really confused. I thought that actually students were not logging into live school on Fridays. So
Nope,
I guess I'm wrong.
Yep, Emily, I can help out. Actually, I'll jump in here. It's
Okay.
just for clarification. So you didn't miss anything. Is originally that hybrid plan, if you recall, did have the Friday or a Monday off. As the summer kind of progressed, we actually did come out with I'm going to overshare Senate Bill 98. It's daily instruction. So students will receive daily instruction Monday through Friday now. And so you'll see the new updated elementary schedule for your specific grade will indicate that there will be instruction Monday through Friday.
Sorry, I feel really dumb now. Thank you.
Please
Thank you.
Things have changed a million times. Any question is a totally valid question. This is a global pandemic. Okay, our next question is from Nita Mikhali in relation to specialists. Ms. Kay, would you mind answering this, please? Nita, would you please go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question?
Yes, hello, hi, everyone. Excuse me, yeah, I had a question actually regarding the specialist classes. The last year, that's last 3 months, I had so much hard time with my, especially my daughter, first grader, that how they have to address all of the homeworks online and doing art, music, those took so long time. And then I had to stay with my daughter and do everything with her that she can accomplish and finish their work. So I want to know how this year is going to go for special classes, like art, music. Is going to be same thing like last year or is different?
Hi, Ms. Javahari. It's so nice to see you. Actually, Ms. Gutheinz is on here. Would you mind actually answering the question?
Sure. Hi, I'm Mrs. G. I teach music at Hawthorne, and all the specialists have been working really hard to design lessons that will be given live. So there won't be the same kind of independent learning that has to happen like in the spring. So we'll be there live for their sessions. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, so I just want to make sure, so they're going to do it independently. We don't have to stand by them if they have a question and stuff. They can do it all together with the teacher, right?
Yes.
With the specialist teacher.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so it was very hard for me last few months from last year because I had to do everything with her. So hopefully this time she can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much. Our
Thank
next
you.
question comes from Eugenia Rosenthal about live instruction and the hours. Mr. Bugby or Mr. Seaman or Ms. Kaber, whoever would like to answer this question, but please go ahead. And if you would please go ahead and unmute your microphone, Eugenia.
That's perfect, thank you. I have a simple question. I know there was a lot of talk about how much of instruction hours there would be per week for the live program. So that's my question. Thank you.
Ms. Withorn, do you want to answer that question? What it's going to look like?
Hi, so for 5th grade, and I mean, every teacher is different, but we have amazing principals that have laid out wonderful schedules for us to kind of go off of. And so it's going to look similar to a bell schedule. Obviously, they're not going to be on the computer all day long, but we're going to have little mini lessons, and then we could do breakout rooms, Zoom. They're going to collaborate with their peers, but we're trying to make it as best as like if they were in school, where they can hang out with their classmates, collaborate, feel kind of like a community, but from home, if that makes any sense. But we'll probably be doing mini lessons and then have them break out. They're able to stay on and ask questions, or if they feel independent, they can get off and work, and then we'll kind of check back in with each subject. We'll have recess breaks, lunch breaks, all of that.
Great.
So my question is more like, is there a target? And I'm not gonna like hold you to the minute, but is there an average time frame of live instruction per week that the district is trying to achieve? So like, 5 hours a week or 2 hours a week of live instruction. I know it's hard to compute, but.
Well, I guess it depends on how we look at it, right? So the teachers will basically be doing live instruction from 8:30 until 2:30, right? And it just depends on what is happening on a given day. So the teachers are going to be giving live instruction. It's about how much live instruction is going to be received is from your sense. So there's not going to be recorded lessons for them to spend their time during the school day to look at, but like what Mrs. Withorn was saying, there's a lesson that you give in math to the whole class, right? And then you spend the rest of that math time in small groups, or the students are working independently. So they have an opportunity to be live and stay on that Zoom and to still participate, ask for help either with the teacher or with the small breakout group that they're with. Or if they're an independent learner and the teacher says it's okay, they can choose to log out for a time. And then the next time that they have is whatever that next time is that they're logging back in to begin the next lesson. So it's hard to answer from that perspective. There's an option for a full day live, of course, but that's so that the teacher will also be teaching live, and maybe your specific child won't be in every single group. Don't expect that your child is getting live instruction 100% of the time.
Can I jump in really quickly? Is that okay?
Go ahead, Afi.
So I just want to clarify that even when we're in the classroom, I'm not standing in front of the classroom teaching from 8:30 to 2:30. So I do the instruction, I pull a group, I work with them, the kids are working independently, I check in with them, and that's pretty much what we want to do the same when it's at home. So it's really, I know parents assume that the kids are, I'm talking and lecturing for 6 hours. That's not at all what's happening, because I would lose them within 5 minutes. But so we are trying to do
it. You don't? I always thought you did.
So it's really important for them. First of all, we don't want them to be sitting on a screen. We're going to lose them within 5 minutes if they're staring at a screen, So the whole idea is to mimic what we do in the classroom, to pull groups, same thing in breakout rooms, set a timer, see you guys in 20 minutes. I'm here if you need me, go work on this while I'm working with a small group, and then rotate so everybody still gets that small group instruction.
I think I do want to jump in. I think this is the big question of the day. So I'm glad it came up at the very beginning. And teachers, you can all feel free to jump in. I think what we want to communicate more than anything today is that we want this to look as much like a classroom setting as we can, but on the computer. So if I'm teaching, like Mrs. Delajani said, if I'm teaching a math lesson, in the classroom, I may teach for 15 minutes, and then it's independent practice time where you may have, if I have a class of 20 students, I might have 15 students working on, or 5 students working on one assignment, another 5 students working on an extension assignment because we're differentiating for them. But then as the teacher, I may be working with a small group of 5 students. So while the teachers are on all day, they may not be working with all of your students all day long. I think that's the most important thing to take away from today, is that this will look like a regular classroom, just on a computer screen.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Elizabeth Cannon. Elizabeth, please go ahead and unmute your microphone. And Mr. Seaman, will you please answer this question? It's in relation to an on-demand option if the Zoom times are not flexible. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Hi, we are new to Horace Mann. We have a first grade son who's going to be starting in Miss Wolf's class. There he is. And we, having had the experience last school year in LA USD with Zoom as a kindergartner, it was such a challenge to get him on the Zoom, engaged in the Zoom, staying on the Zoom. And so when the schedule was released and we saw that the rhythm is kind of log in for a mini lesson, log out, log in, log out, and it goes from 8:30 to 2 as two parents who are going to be working from home, we just don't know how we're going to manage it and get him to stay excited and engaged in learning and not have it create so much stress and anxiety and arguments in our house every day. And so we're just wondering if at the grade level or for the teachers, if they have discretion to maybe shorten that day so it's not so many hours, maybe it's consolidated. So the on again, off again, it feels like it's going to be a real challenge for our family.
Thank you guys, and welcome to BHUSD and also to Horace Mann. Ultimately, the schedules that were created are basically a structure for which the principals will help and assist the teachers with being able to deliver instruction daily. It is always up to the teachers. We have amazing and very creative and innovative teachers within this district. And so they'll be working with their classrooms, like you're stating, almost individually to be able to restructure and recreate what is going to meet the needs of their students. So absolutely will a kindergarten class and daily schedule look much differently than, say, a fourth grade or a fifth grade class where there's a lot more structure and the students are able to work more independently. I think Ms. Goldstein's on here and she can kind of back me. She delivers instruction in TK and she can also talk about how even within those larger groups, they really like to par down to even smaller groups and more individualized groups to make sure that the students get that foundational level in those early elementary classes, and that it's not always beneficial to just allow them to be logged in, you know, for 8 hours straight. And Ned, if you don't mind piggybacking off me a little bit.
Sure. It's a great question because I just had a parent meeting yesterday and all that came up and I explained to the parents that it really is, it's a big ask for you guys to jump on, jump off, jump on, jump off. So I'm sure Ms. Wolf will do the same thing. We're going to work with you to figure out what works best for you. And I did say to my class, we're going to be paring down into really small groups. So everybody's going to log on for that morning meeting because we want everyone to see the whole class together, you know, do some social emotional work, get to know each other. And then maybe 5 will stay on and the rest will go away, and then they'll jump back on, and then the rest will go away. And so there will be still some jumping on and jumping off, but it won't look like what you're seeing all those times, because within those timeframes, your teacher will pare it down, I'm sure. And we're all really nice. And if you just say your needs and what your frustrations are, we're going to be here to work with you. I told my families, if you feel like what I'm, giving you isn't enough, let me know. If you feel like it's too much, let me know, because every child is different, and that's the best thing about good teaching is differentiating, and it's not just about academic needs, it's about social emotional or just maybe your kid's attention span and your ability as working parents to get them on and off, because for a TKer all the way to 2nd grade, that's not so easy for kids to do by themselves. So don't worry, Ms. Wolf will work with you. We all will. We're super nice, and yes, we will work with you, and we will be making small groups. So when there's a small group on, your kid's off.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Deborah Termy. I am just wondering if you could please go ahead and unmute your microphone. And Dr. Breggy, will you please answer this question? It's in relation to the $1 million question about reopening schools.
Hi, I'm Deborah. Once it's okay to open the schools, are you ready to open the schools right away? Or I know there's a 10-day with the union, but other than that, I know you have the committee as well, working on it, the think tank, but are you going to open once the governor says it's okay?
Hi, Deborah, and great question. That is the $1 million question. They, even at the county level, they don't even have the metrics exactly where they said that we would be at as far as making that decision. But you're absolutely right. It's more about the monitoring aspect and being off of that list for the 14 days. When we're looking at that data every day. So we will be, once we start getting close to those consecutive days, that we will be letting people know that, this is where we are on the monitoring list. It will not be something where if that 14th day is on a Friday, that it would be a Monday, because we're going to have to, most likely, depending on the public health order, most likely we're going to have to work back into a hybrid situation. So it'll be most likely, and it depends really on the physical distance. That's going to be and will be that will be determined in the public health order. So it will be a phase-in approach.
Can you just repeat that last sentence? I'm so sorry. Someone had their microphone unmuted and we weren't able to hear you.
So it's going to be a phase-in approach. So when we know that we're getting closer to being off of that list, and we are working with our union groups and our custodians, that we're ready. We'll be ready to take groups of students. It really is going to depend on how many students are going to be allowed back into our facilities, depending on the public health order and the physical distancing. But it is something that we're going to have to look at as far as the timing of when that occurs and when those metrics are put into place as far as being allowed back in. But once we're off of that list and we meet the metrics, we're going to be ready to begin moving our students back in. A lot of it just depends upon the physical distancing. That's our biggest barrier right now.
Thank you so much. So our next question, and I am going to preface this by saying that there are multiple questions in this one comment. We are going to address one question at a time so we can try and get to as many people as possible. If you could put your other questions into the chat, we will get back to you. Our next question is from Jamie Prijatel. Ms. Kaber, would you please answer this question? Jamie, please go ahead and unmute your microphone. Feel free to pick whichever question you would like to ask, Jamie.
Okay. When will we get our kids' schedule and the list of their classmates for live learning?
Hi, Jamie. It's nice to see. Well, no, I can't see you.
I'll see you. I'll look
good
at
morning.
you.
There we go. Now I can see you. So good morning. Good morning. So first thing is that the class schedule has already been released. It's the academic class schedule that went out last week, and you'll get it again to Friday in communication that's going out, and you'll get some real specific things from teachers throughout next week. You should be hearing from your homeroom teacher on Friday and again Monday about signing up for appointment times next week so that they can have one-on-one meetings with you. And then specialists are holding parent meetings next week, so you'll get all of that exposure happening. Class lists will take a little bit more time. We can't just release student information like that. So each of our teachers are reaching out to their own groups of students, and they have to get permission from everyone to say, yes, it's okay to release my name and whatever contact information that's being released to the rest of the class, and then you'll have a roster when that's up and ready, and then your student will be able to see on Tuesday morning at 8:30 when they have their class check-in who's in his class.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Maura Teliu. It is about the supply list for the ILC. Maura, please go ahead and unmute your microphone, and Ms. Kaber, you might actually be the best person to answer this.
Hi, thank you, Rebecca. I was just wondering if there's a supply list for ILC, or if I think there's a list on the website. I don't know if it applies to ILC and if we should buy anything or wait until we hear from the teacher.
Just wait. I would say at this point to hear from your teacher. I'm guessing it's the basics like scissors and some crayons to color, some markers, some paper. There's some things that are going home for ILC students. So when you come and pick up your devices, the ILC teachers are busy working at both sites so that wherever you come to pick up your devices, we'll give them to you. If you're at Horace Mann and you've already picked up a device, we'll let you know when there's some time to come back over and pick up those little supply kits for you so that you have it. And then they'll contact you throughout the week. Also with ILC, they're doing one-on-one parent meetings next week. So they're doing morning check-ins at 8:30, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they'll have one-on-one parent and student meetings so that they can spend some time really starting the year in like a social emotional connection of like, who are you? Who's your student? Who's this teacher? Like, let's start to really form an intentional connection before we get into academics, that go slow to go fast model.
Thank you so much.
Can I jump in?
Go ahead.
Okay, and Ms. Kaber, feel free to jump in because I think this is one of the things that it's hard to explain in an email because you don't hear the tone. It is very important to all of us that our kids come back with social emotional support. So I want everyone to understand what that first week will look like. Like Ms. Kaber said, that first week, teachers are going to be setting up appointments with families to get to know the students and mom and dad or anyone else that's going to be supporting them in their learning. It's also important for everyone to hear that this year, the academics at the beginning of the year are going to be a little bit more of a slow rollout than in a regular year, because we really need to invest the time in the beginning to build that community, which is going to be that much more difficult on a computer screen rather in person. Anything else, Ms. Kaber, on that one? Okay.
Thank you so much. Our next
Can I add one more thing? I'm so sorry. Our counselors are working really hard. They're connecting together, and they're going to be going into each class on a schedule to teach some real direct social emotional content. That is for live at BHUSD. For ILC, we have a dedicated teacher who's been part of for the Hawthorne staff for the last 6 years, and someone who's just run social emotional through her blood. Ms. Terranova will be running social emotional learning through the ILC, and she'll be helping with all of the initial class check-ins or morning meetings and anything else that a family might need as we go through.
Thank you so much. Our next question is for Dr. Brugge. It's from Bahari Yektafa, I think, or a different Bahari with a Y at the end. It's about the transition for when the country opens back up. I know you touched on this, Dr. Brugge, but she's specifically wondering about the transition. But Bahari, please feel free to unmute yourself and represent your question.
I'd actually rather you, if it's possible, I'd rather actually you answer the second question I asked, because I think that
100 questions, so please go ahead. I haven't got to the second one yet, but please go ahead and ask that.
Okay. It was, will there be workbooks or supplemental tools for the students, and how will those be distributed if there are?
Hi, Bahar. Okay, great question. We are working on now a plan. At the beginning of the year, we're going to figure out, which is next week, we're going to figure out a way to distribute all of the workbooks, the textbooks, all of the beginning of the year stuff. We also at Horace Mann, and I'm guessing Ms. Kaber is doing something very similar. We sent a questionnaire out to teachers asking how often they think that they'll need to send things out. I'm gonna guess Ms. Goldstein, who teaches TK, is gonna be sending things home much more often than Ms. Subin, who teaches 4th grade. So Ms. Goldstein, what are you thinking in terms of sending things home?
You know, I'm nuts. So for me, I would say every 2 weeks, but most people wouldn't, because I have a lot of manipulatives and just stuff that people need to glue and touch and cut. For me, ideally, I'd love every 2 weeks. However, I think the older grades, Heather, you can speak to that probably maybe once a month. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but if I could have my wish, it'd be every week, but that's just asking too much. So I could handle every 2 weeks. No, every week's not asking too much. Well, we'll work together. We'll figure it out.
Hi again, Heather, Subin, 4th grade. I'm not sending anything out aside from the workbook. So my parents are going to get a sort of a supply list from me of the things that they should need. And I have become a Google University master's degree program this summer. So pretty much most things will be digital based. So everything's sort of hyperdocs and links. And so, we don't play with blocks anymore in 4th grade, unfortunately. So I don't need to really send supplies out. So for me, none.
So Bahar, to answer your question, and that's exactly what I'm thinking, I'm assuming the lower the grade, the more stuff is going to be coming home. I know Mrs. Delajani is planning on sending things home, but probably not as often as Ms.
So in 3rd grade, we are hoping to do it, kind of taper off. So I think it'll be every 2 weeks and then every month, and then everything will go digital once the kids are more comfortable being on the Google Classroom.
And I will be 100% honest and tell you, we haven't gotten to that yet. So we don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but we are thinking about it.
Can I jump in also? Is that okay? So I'm gonna, For us, we haven't started our device rollout yet. Horace Mann went first and we're doing it second. So as you come to pick up your devices either Thursday, Friday, or Monday, Tuesday at Hawthorne, you'll tell us which homeroom your student has, and we'll get you whatever that package is. So there should be a package of, depending on the class, maybe some papers that need to go home, maybe some consumables, maybe some manipulatives, depending on which thing. We're trying to sort of do it all in one shot if we can to begin. And then we're hoping to do a second round in early September consistently for everyone, meaning there'll be dates that will be available for the whole school, and then your teacher will reach out to say, like, make sure you're going to come and pick up these things, or hey, you don't need to pick anything up for me, so don't worry about it. And then we're planning to do one again probably mid-October. So we're hoping that there's actually just 2 that are there, depending just where we are in mid-October, to get us through till December. And we're hoping to be consistent for everyone about when that's available, so that Mr. Painter and I are not spending our days out on the street waiting for parents to come up and get supplies.
Okay, thank you so much. So I am going to do something unusual. Normally I really try hard to make sure that I allow each parent to represent their own question, but I have 4 questions in a row from people who think that we are going back to school in person. And so I want to take a moment and just ask Dr. Breggy to step in and clarify the fact that the governor is not letting us come back to school in person, and what is the difference between ILC and live at BHUSD, and what we're offering and how BHUSD is running, because I think we need to go a little bit more macro, because 4 in a row indicates to me that maybe I have done a bad job communicating with everybody, or maybe there has been a little bit of a disconnect, but things are changing and we understand. So Dr. Breggy, can you just take the floor for a second and clarify?
Sure. So I definitely take the first part of that. And I also want to, we have to forgive ourselves. There's so much information going around, it's changing all the time. It's parents like all of you and teachers that are in here. This is what I appreciate, because this is the only way where we're going to get clarity on moving forward. So it's absolutely makes sense that some people are not sure about what those next steps are. We are required to follow the public health order by LA County and the LA County Department of Public Health, and they have determined, along with our governor, that we are in a high-risk area, and so our schools, our school district, are not able to open at this time. And so we are put on a monitoring list because we are, the cases of being positive for COVID-19 are so high. There's a number of other metrics that are also involved that have to do with our region, that have to do with the number of hospitalizations, the number of respirators, number of people that are taking up ICU beds. It's pretty extensive. And so we are still at a place where, we're not off the monitoring list. And so we have to be, once we meet the metrics and we're off for 14 consecutive days, that's when if we meet the other metrics, which they're still determining, that we will be then allowed to come back depending on what the public health order says. So it doesn't mean that it's all students are back. It could be because the public health order may say 6 feet physical distancing, and then we have to be sure that we're looking at the classroom size, and it could be 10 to 12 students in a classroom at one time. And we're all directed by this public health order. I know that there was some confusion about elementary waivers being provided and given out. There are none in LA County that are being authorized and giving permission to, because of the high number of count that we have. So I just want that to be clear, because I know that was confusing for some people because they thought elementary would be coming back. I can tell you that every single person I've talked to, from our Board of Education to people that work in our offices, we all want students back as soon as possible. And that's why we're working very cooperatively with the LA County Department of Public Health. So right now, everything is virtual, everything is online. And I'll let you guys talk a little bit more about ILC and live at BHUSD. But for right now, everything is virtual, and we are planning when the time is allowed to then transition back into the classroom, and that's our live at BHUSD group.
So, Mr. Seaman, Ms. Caba, I have another question for you in a second, but Mr. Seaman, can you just explain what we're offering as a district in a macro way? Because the questions are very macro. They're not specifically to elementary necessarily. And although this is an elementary conversation, that's important to explain that the ILC deadline has ended, but that's what the ILC, what it is, and then that we're offering live at BHUSD until such time that we can return.
Totally, and thank you, Mrs. Principal Kaber. I think that she was going to jump in here, but so we are offering two options for the fall, live at BHUSD, which is opening virtually, in that there are schedules where they're provided to families, both elementary, middle, and high, that we will be following as far as login times to be able to access what a typical student would experience if the brick and mortar, meaning the physical locations, were open. So if I'm in live at BHUSD, if I have a middle school schedule, I am following that exact middle school schedule that I agreed to during second semester of last year. The same thing in elementary. The same thing in the elementary. So a typical fourth grade student will experience as closely to a fourth grade day if in the live at BHUSD as if they were in the brick and mortar or on the physical location, meaning they'll have access to their classroom teacher throughout the day to deliver instruction in math, science, social studies, and English, in addition to each day they'll have access to a different specialist teacher. So like Mrs. G's on here as the music teacher at Hawthorne, they'll have access one day to their art teacher, to the makerspace teacher, and then also access to the physical educators that are on their campuses in the elementary. The difference is in the Independent Learning Center, they too will have a classroom teacher that'll be assigned to them. However, it'll be some Horace Mann and Hawthorne students, which is actually kind of cool for them to have access to students that are at a different location. And they'll be learning in math, science, social studies, English, and some writing as well. However, they will not be participating in that daily of the either art, the music, the physical education, or the makerspace. And so the Independent Learning Center is a full semester commitment. So it's for really those families that do not feel comfortable if and when we're able to transition back into our brick and mortar physical campuses, the Independent Learning Center is really that best option for those families. For those families that do want to get their students back on campus and back into school, then the live at BHUSD option is the best option.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Nada Naderi. Could you please go ahead and unmute your microphone? Ms. Cable, will you please answer this question? It is about special support for our new students.
Hi, yes. I wanted to know, will there be any special support for new students who have never done remote or met their classmates or teachers?
Yes, so our counselors always do new student interviews. That's part of their normal playbook. So we're going to continue with that they'll have, in addition to the parent meeting with a classroom teacher, they'll also, in the first few weeks of school, have an independent meeting with just the student and the counselor so that there's some familiarity and to figure out what that student needs specifically depending on grade level. Ms. Erickson, will you talk a little bit about how you welcome new students normally into school and like if you have any plan for this year?
Yeah, so new students, I mean, I think it's great that we're going to have this opportunity next week for these one-on-one conferences. I know that especially second grade at Hawthorne, we're planning 2 days of meeting the families and the kids, and then 2 days of getting a chance to just sort of read with the kids and light assessments. We do have, I mean, as many teachers have spoken about already, we have that social emotional component that we're really focusing on this year, and it's built in multiple times during the day. So morning meeting, everyone gets a chance to speak and share. We also have the ability for these breakout rooms. So to be able to group new students with, you know, a child who is eager to help. That's just one more way that we welcome these kids. Kids are pretty, you know, I feel like they, what's the word? They adapt really well. So I think, you know, every year we always get new students, and after a day or two, they feel like part of the community like everyone else. But we do always focus and keep a close eye on them, for sure.
So much.
Right.
Our next question oh, sorry. Go
Can I
ahead.
Can I take off that? Just for fifth grade, I mean, being a little older and maybe it not being as hard to transition into a classroom. Even fifth graders still love to read a book like Sticks and Stones, or a book with a theme about, you know, meeting the new kid or new teacher. And so just kind of the morning check-ins really help those new students because they get to meet their classmates. The one-on-one with the teacher will help, but just kind of forming them with kids that are, like Janine said, eager to help makes it so much easier for them to kind of transition into a schedule, a routine, and have someone that they can confine in as well as their teacher. So.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Kelly Turner. Mr. Bugby, will you please answer this question? Is in relation to PE. Kelly, please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hi, I was just hoping that you could talk a little bit about what is happening with PE and how that will work, especially for students who may be sharing space with siblings, like in the same bedroom, or they're in different classes, or who just don't have a lot of room indoors, don't have a backyard. PE is really just what killed our spirit in the spring, and I'm just wondering how that's going to work now.
Kelly, I'm glad you asked that question. We've been working very closely with our PE teachers. They've come up with their own sort of list of materials that they're hoping for. We're hoping that we can get those purchased. If not, we're going to send a list out to parents in case they would like to purchase those. They're going to be working a little bit differently. Instead of, they may be keeping logs of physical activity that they're doing outside or with friends, but they're also going to be trying to be creative in doing exercises indoors with certain things. I know they're looking at bands, they're looking at tennis balls, so things that kids can use within their own bedroom or living room. Does that help?
Sure. I'm just thinking about the space inside, and, you know, like one person's like trying to do math with their teacher on Zoom, and the other person's like throwing a ball. I was just trying to picture it.
You know what? That's a very good point. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, if you have a third grader who's working on math and a kindergartner who's jumping around the living room, or a TK with Miss Goldstein singing songs throughout the living room.
It's fun, for sure.
It's fun. And hats off to you, because I know how much work you're all doing as parents to keep this going.
I think that the key is going to be communication, communicating with your teachers about what you need. Like, everyone knows, all of us are at home, all of us are having the same struggles that you're having. So the key is going to be to communicate to that teacher about what you need. Ms. Goldstein wants to say something.
Exactly what Sarah said. Let your when you have your one-on-one conference with your teacher, let them know what your issue is, that you have a third grader doing math while your kindergartner is jumping up doing jumping jacks, and that you have maybe not an extra room in your house to accommodate that. Let your teacher know. We will definitely work with you. We will figure things out. We will make accommodations 100%. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I was going to jump in on that one as well, because last year at the end of the year, a lot of the parents with the specialist, because somebody brought that up, they were overwhelmed. And as a parent, so was I. So I totally understand and sympathize with you guys. You need to let us know. We also, you know, we understand. We're at home. Most of us have kids of our own who are trying to do their things while we're trying to teach our lessons. So if you just communicate it with us, that's the only way we'll know. So even if we were in the classroom, there's always circumstances at home where kids can't do homework, and we have to be flexible, especially now, and be understanding that if they miss an assignment or two, it's not the end of the world. We just have to survive. It's a global pandemic, and it's fine. If they miss a PE assignment, I don't want to say for the PE teacher, it's okay, but we're not going to die. So like if my son got a 2 in PE last year, it's not the end of the world. It's second grade PE. We'll survive. He knows how to jump. He knows how to run, and we'll be fine. So we just
I'm going to just add one little thing. So next week, there's going to be grade level meetings with each of the specialist teachers. They're going to introduce themselves. You'll be able to see who they are specifically. Parents will be welcome to come to that meeting with their student. They're going to share their expectations, which will be consistent across the specialist classes. And then they're going to provide you with their contact information. So if you are a family who is worried about PE specifically, that's your opportunity to reach out and email and set up your own meeting that first week of school with the PE teacher, so that there's a conversation about what can you do as a parent to support the academic piece of PE while still being able to support globally your whole family. That's true for art. That's true for Makerspace. If you had an issue in the spring and you really want to reach out to the music teacher and say, I just want to make sure we're starting on the same page, like that'll be your opportunity to set up that meeting and advocate and talk way ahead of time with those specialists. And that's for both sites. I don't mean to just speak for mine.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Marvin Winans, I'm sorry. It's in relation to internet and outages. I've asked our Executive Director of Technology, David D'Amico, to answer this. However, in relation to absences and missed days, we will then redirect to our principals once Mr. D'Amico has finished answering. But Marvin, please go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Hey, thank you. You know, you can say Winans too. We're winning, but it's Winans. The question really is dealing more so with absences, because I guess the main thing is if there were to be some, interruption in internet service or, just how are absences or tardies being, kind of addressed if a child isn't able to get to the internet at the beginning of the day. Normally, obviously, that would be a tardy, or it might be an absence if something happened. And then are there going to be like some way to make that up, or is it just you just missed? And I guess in the off chance that there is kind of like an outage, how does that work? You know what I mean, when it comes to school and absences?
David, do you want me to talk about absences first, and then we can come back to the technology piece?
Yeah, well, I think it's mainly about absences. I mean, there are occasionally outages, and sometimes, the outage covers we just recently, there was an outage in Beverly Hills that affected particular neighborhoods. So I think that the question is really more about how are we going to address that if a student is out of class because of an outage. We will know what the outages are, and my general answer is that we're not going to hold students responsible for something they can't control. But generally, if we know there's an outage in an area, what we try to do is get in touch with, usually it's the city, but sometimes there's another provider, and we try to get messaging out to schools so they understand right away what's going on. I don't know if that answers the question. That's the technical part of the question, but that's
right. Let me go ahead and go back to absences. Hi, Marvin. So absences in general, this year will be a little bit different than in spring. We will be taking attendance in the morning. Teachers will be responsible for taking attendance. If your student is absent for any reason, you need to communicate that with the teacher so that we can keep official record of that. And if it's because of an outage, I would assume it would be handled differently than because he's sick and can't get out of bed.
Or yeah, I might just actually, sorry, I should have directed the question, now that I'm hearing it, to Ms. Chisholm, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services and in charge of all the absences. So please take it away, Laura, and I apologize for misdirecting the question.
No problem, thank you. Hi, Marvin, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good, good. So a couple things going on. We will be taking attendance, as Mr. Bugby was saying, and if the students are absent, you're going to get a call from the auto dialer that lets you know that your student missed a period or a full day. And then if parents aren't aware, we also have a mandate from the state. It's called Senate Bill 98, and all students must have at least 60% attendance. If they fall below that, then we have to go into our tiered intervention. So you'll receive phone calls from teachers, possibly the school site principals, and possibly counselors to figure out what's going on. But that is if it's kind of an ongoing thing. But if it's just they miss a period here or there, you'll get the robo-dialer, and then you'll have to call into the site's attendance office and say, hey, you know, he or she was sick, or we didn't have internet, and then we can clear that for you.
Okay, and just to be clear, that is like they'll take attendance at the beginning, but if they're late, obviously you can come in at a later point and that won't be considered an absence, or
it'll be a tardy.
It'll be just a tardy, and if
Yeah.
they show up at any point during that day, it'll be okay to not be an absence per se.
It'll be a tardy, but then of course if it becomes a pattern or an ongoing thing, then we'll have to have a different conversation. Just try to figure out how we can help support to make sure that they're there on time, because they need to be there on time to get to benefit from the instruction. So
right, okay.
Yes, that we're asking that everybody log in on time at the normal time and participate with their teachers and their classmates, because it's a full schedule and a full menu of options for the kids.
Okay.
I don't want anyone to take away that it's okay to be late and you're still counted as present. But I will tell you that purposefully, as opposed to sending an absence message at the end of the day, Mr. Bugby and I agreed that they would go out at 10 a.m. each day. So attendance will be in 2 areas like normal. And then those automated dialers will be going out to parents at 10 a.m. for an option for students to join after recess. If they haven't joined after recess at 10:30, they'll be absent for the day in that sort of way.
Can I just jump in really quickly on that one? I know it's really hard as a parent who also has to get my kids up to be on screen at 8:30, and they've been out of the norm routine, and last year was different. We had our sessions starting at later times, but now it's really mimicking real school, and it's so important for the kids to be on screen, dressed, ready to go. Last year I had parents who were feeding their children in the middle of the lesson. Like, we want to make sure this is like a normal school day. So it's so important as parents that we place that importance so that we teach the children that this is just like being in school. Physically, they're not there, but this is their classroom. Their bedroom is their classroom. Your living room is their classroom, just like my living room will be my classroom to teach from. So it's so important because they do miss it, and we do have lessons planned. Like, we've already planned out the first 2 weeks of teaching. So it's so important for you guys to place the same importance, that they're there and ready to go and learn. Thank you
so much. Our next question comes from Caitlin Bowers, and I'm wondering if our younger elementary teachers would please jump in and answer this one. Caitlin, please go ahead and unmute your microphone. It is in relation to keeping younger students engaged with Zoom and tips for doing that for parents.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Bowers. I have a kindergartner. He was actually in Ms. Goldstein's TK class last year, which was awesome. So thank you, Ms. Goldstein. I'm just curious, you know, last year was only a little bit of time. And again, this is going to be all day long for the kids to be in there, and like they sort of can read, sort of can't read. So what do you want us as parents to do to try to keep those kids engaged? Because I work full time and my husband is a full-time physics teacher at the high school. So he's going to be teaching all day as well. So what do you suggest parents do?
So I'll answer that question. Hi, Caitlin. So because last year we were, live for an hour, and you saw how that was hard for some of the really small kids, jumping on couches and keeping them engaged. So teachers are working really hard to come up with grabbing kind of moments and songs. Like, last year we put plates on our heads and we did different things to try to stay engaged. We're working really hard. We're going to, lots of us are going to webinars to find those catch-alls to get the kids interested and engaged, and me in lower grades in particular, to put things in kids' hands so they're not staring at a screen, so that they have things like counting bears and Play-Doh and scissors and all that stuff. My suggestion for you is to set a timer, I guess. Once you find from your teacher your schedule when your small group is hopping on, hopping off, you're gonna need to set on your iPad the timers. And I believe we have a tutorial for that, how you can do that. So that's my suggestion, is the timers, and then also work with your teacher. They will be, they'll understand that that your kid can't get on by themselves. It's hard to get on Zoom when you're 5 and you're learning your numbers and your letters. So I'm sure your teacher is coming up with a great plan, but we're well aware that it's hard to keep their attention on a screen. And so we're coming up with all sorts of fun activities and things to keep them engaged. But yeah, that'll be tough setting timers for on and off, but that's my suggestion is to, and you maybe even make out a timer with illustrations. So it's easier for him to understand what's happening at what time. So like illustration of a book for when it's reading time, maybe, you know, a calculator, some numbers for math. But again, your teacher's going to give you all this. Don't worry. We're working really hard to get this all ready.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Katie Weiss, and it is about the professional development opportunities and support that we have provided for our staff and our teachers. Mr. Bugby and Ms. Kaber, please feel free to jump in for this question.
Hi there. First of all, thank you all so much for everything you're doing to reimagine education. I'm particularly grateful for the focus on the social emotional that you've all mentioned. Mrs. Goldstein just referenced webinars that teachers are attending, but I'm wondering if you can tell us more about more formal opportunities and support for professional development being provided to teachers and staff to ensure that they have access to best practices for virtual engagement and that type of thing.
Actually, I'm going to ask one of the teachers to jump in because I know you've all been quite busy over your summer. Heather, you want to jump in, Ms. Subin?
Sure. So I'm going to just piggyback on what the other teachers have said. We're all pretty innovative people and we will find it. And it's supported by Dustin and Mr. Seaman and our principals and a district office, and they will train us on all of the programs that they are bringing into the school. We all have tech coaches at all of our sites who are amazing and available at the drop of a hat. I couldn't get into a program at 8 o'clock at night and I texted our tech guy and he responded, and that's when he helped me. But excuse me, we are also go-getters. We will find it. Like I said, Google University is our friend. We watch endless hours of YouTube. So it's being provided at the site level, at the district level, personally. You know, I've worked with Miss Delajani a lot. She's 3rd grade, I'm 4th grade. We reach down, they reach up. And we make this happen, and we will make this happen for your children. But that's basically where we're at.
Does anyone want to go through a quick list of all of the hundreds of different trainings you've had?
Yeah, I mean, I have never had a summer where I haven't had a summer, and I really have not had a summer this year. It's been nonstop trainings, all hours of the day, to the point where my kids are like, not again, Mom, can you get off the computer? So I've done Zoom, up at Moji, YouTube, Google, Kami. I mean, you can name it. Every single day there's been one of them. And I want you guys to rest assured that we are doing everything we can. This is so hard for us too, because it's all new. And we want to make sure the kids are successful, because if they're not successful, then we're not successful. And so I want you guys to be, rest assured that we've been to so many trainings. Like I did a math, had, manipulatives online one last week, just so that I can make sure what I would normally do in my classroom, I can still do for the kids at home. So I know it's really stressful as a parent, and I do understand because I am one also, but we have been in trainings nonstop for 2 weeks, every day. And like Heather said, Ms. Subin said, our tech people are amazing. They've really been, I reached out to our tech guy at 9:30 and he hopped on virtually onto my computer and updated stuff for me at night. And our tech coaches have been amazing by Zooming with me personally and getting me through stuff. So.
And Katie, I'm glad you asked that question because I'm new to the district. I've only been here for 2 years. I've come from another district. When I arrived in Beverly Hills, I was blown away at the tech savviness of our teachers. They have taught me, they're all smiling because they have all taught me so much. Our teachers are so tech savvy with the help of the I4 coaches and the whole tech team at the district level. We are at a level that I have not seen in another district, and I've worked in 4 different districts. So I'm thrilled that we have our teams ready technology-wise, and we are so blessed that all of our kids are already at one-to-one with devices.
I have one extra thing to add, though, I think is super important. If a parent doesn't know how to use a program, please reach out to your child's teacher, because we can navigate you guys through that pretty quickly. That was probably the hardest thing in spring, is I was using all Nearpod and Flocabulary and Newsela, and the parents were like, wait a minute, where is all of this? How does it work? And so we have just a wealth of access and information and programs, and it link through Clever and go here. And I would give all of these directions. And I think the learning curve was really large for a lot of parents, where for us, it's a little second nature. So please reach out to your teacher if you don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm using some sort of foreign language you've never heard of, and I would be happy, and I'm sure all the teachers were, as Annette said, we're very friendly and approachable, and we will walk you through all these programs.
As a matter of fact, Beverly Hills staff that's on this right now, can we give a shout out to our technology people? I'm sorry, Ms. Starkins, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Our next question comes from Sharon Lavi. They have asked for the moderator to read the question. Has enrollment drastically changed from last year? I think this might have been a little bit precipitated from what Mr. Bugby opened with. So I am going to ask Ms. Chisholm, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services and in charge of enrollment, to answer this question. Has there been a drastic change in enrollment?
Great, thank you so much, Ms. Starkins. To answer the question directly, no, there has not been a drastic change in enrollment. We have a lower number of students enrolled in elementary overall, but we are continuing to enroll students on a daily basis, and we're actually on pace to exceed the total number of students enrolled in the district this year than last year. The middle school and the high school have basically stayed the same, very, very minimal change. And there was a small decrease at the elementary level. What happens is sometimes we predict sections, and then there's a change, and we have to rearrange staff to support that. And sometimes you have a bubble at a certain level, and then that bubble kind of evens out. And so that's why we had to move staff around to even out the sections. But no, there has not been a drastic decrease in enrollment across the district.
Thank you, Sharon. I hope that answers your question. Our next question comes from Kristen Letelier. I hope I've said that correctly. It is in relation to academic progress. And Ms. Kay, will you please answer that? Kristen, please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hi, I was just curious if we measured the academic progress compared to what was expected for the last 3 months of the year. Was there a deleterious effect of the kids not being in school? And how are we measuring that going forward this year, making sure our kids are on track?
Such a good question. So at the end of the school year, normally we do a STAR assessment, STAR 360 assessment at the very end. We made a decision last year to not assess them. We couldn't figure out how we could ensure that this testing would be accurate from a distance and that they wouldn't have support from parents to be able to answer those questions. Coming into this year, we've already talked to teachers and grade level specialists about ways to ensure that we can get an assessment as we meet our students. That's a normal thing to do in the first few days and weeks of school, is to say, like, who are you, where are you, what can you do? Ms. Erickson referred to it a little bit about doing those really informal assessments or light assessments. In the younger grades, you're gonna probably see some one-to-one assessments, and we're expecting that, like in 3 through 5, that there'll be those STAR 360 assessments that the kids are used to doing. We figured out a way to help to make sure that it will work even from a virtual space. And we'll have more information after we do those assessments about where kids are. I predict, honestly, that they're basically where they should be. That we did so much work up through March that they still have all those skills going, and our teachers worked so hard to make sure that they were consistently teaching. I have no doubt that that the loss is mostly in an emotional connection and in being in a physical space, and that the academics we're going to see are going to be right around where they should be. For our little guys, globally, like away from Beverly Hills Unified, the expectation is that kids are reading by 9. That's 3rd grade. And I don't know if you remember those sort of advertisements that were even here in Los Angeles about 15 years ago that said reading by 9. There was a huge push from the state of California. That's really where kids need to be able to read fluently, to be able to transition to not learning to read, but reading to learn. And so we still continue to teach kids how to read all the way from TK all the way through 2nd grade. So even though 1st graders are reading because our kindergarten teachers are amazing and TK teachers are amazing, and even though 2nd graders seem like they could read anything, they still have so much to learn, and our teachers are amazing in the ways that they can pick up whatever gaps are there. But it's going to be critical for you parents. I know that there's like 200 of you on this. Please share this with your friend. When we're doing an assessment, don't help your child. We need to know where they are, not to punish them, not to like give them a bad grade. That's not how it works in elementary school. We must know where they are independently.
Ms. Kaber, can I just jump in on this? Because I actually have something in my parent back to school sort of thing. Is I already have planned a light assessment on like multiplication facts as a 4th grade teacher. If parents help their children and they all come in proficient, we're moving to 2 by 2 and long division. And if your child really doesn't know them, that will make a more stressful environment from them being at home. So it's better, as Mr. Bugby had said, we go slow. We can build and we can always make things more challenging. But if we make things too challenging out of the gate, we are now dealing with anxiety and stress, which is much more damaging than multiplication moving a little slower than maybe you would want for your child or anticipate for 4th grade. So it's really important we use the slow approach to assessment. Another thing is we have benchmark, advanced, and Pearson assessments that are already built into our schedule, which we will be revisiting as well. And those are much more formal based assessments. And those usually span over the course of a week, particularly at the 4th and 5th grade level, which would mean it would be about 20 minutes of that assessment each day because they are very long and those mimic state testing. So they get practice reading a long passage and dissecting that passage. So you might see those sort of towards the beginning of instruction when we start building what we need to know about the students as far as what they understand, their comprehension skills, their decoding skills, things of that nature. But it's really important that we move slow to move fast, as Mr. Bugby had also reiterated.
And let me jump in with a few things. And Ms. Kaber, you may want to jump in on this also. So once again, I think we cannot say it enough and have you hear it enough that the assessments that we give in school are not our judgment of you as parents. It's so that we know where the holes are as teachers so that we can fill those holes to get the kids where they need to be. So once again, please do not help the kids with assessments or with homework, my friends.
Jump in really quickly on that one.
Yeah.
Those assessments really drive my instruction. So if you guys are helping your kids, then I'm going to start at a different place where they might not be. And I know it's really hard to watch your child fail when they're taking a test and you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, click the right answer. What are you doing? Because I mean, even in the classroom, when I walk around and I watch the kids, I was like, I taught you that. Why are you doing that? But you have to just step back and just give them the opportunity because it really drives where we begin. And if we are, last year in the spring, I had homework assignments being submitted at 12:30 at night. I mean, clearly I know the child wasn't awake at 12:30 at night on the Google Classroom turning in assignments. Please, please, please don't do that for your children. And if you're having a hard time and the kids aren't finishing stuff, reach out to us and let us know so that we can help with that. But don't do it for them because it gives us the impression that they're understanding and then we can't help your kid fill in those gaps.
Hello?
If we know where they are from the beginning, then I can help drive the instruction the appropriate way.
And then just piggybacking off that real quick, for 5th grade and for the upper grade levels, the 5th grade team even talked about, you know, being on Zoom and then assessing them so that we can actually see them as if we were in the classroom. So, before taking those assessments, having a conversation with the students as to why it's important to try your best. But if you don't understand it, take your best guess. We're going to go through it. Just have that kind of safe environment for the kids to know that if they don't get it right, it's okay. We are here to teach them that, help them grow. So establishing that before assessment, I think, really helps with the social emotional and not kind of getting that anxiety for assessments and tests and moving forward. So
I do want to expand on who asked the question in terms of kids who may have fallen behind. I think it's important, and Ms. Kaber, so that we can explain. At Horace Mann, we have Title I intervention. Many of you already know Ms. Duffy. We also have ELD assistance for English language development. And we now actually have an added Title I intervention person, or I will say intervention person. I can't say Title I because it's a funding thing. But we have 3 full-time certificated teachers who will be working with Ms. Duffy to support those kids that may need extra help. And I know, Ms. Kaber, you have Mr. Wheeler, and do you want to say more?
Yeah, we have a learning lab, which just what we call our intervention at our site. And we have 2 teachers that are working in our learning lab, Mr. Wheeler and Mr. Postlethwaite. And we're really excited. They've started to talk to each other. We have some plans for our first week back to set things up. They are really, they really focus what they do based on teacher data, based on the data of the student data that they get from the teachers. And we watch our data, and then we look at our data, and we make decisions not based on our gut and our feelings, but based on real data. And so it's critical for us to do that. We're excited that our learning lab this year has 2 teachers in it. We have one that's focusing on math and math core concepts, and one that's going to focus on language arts and making sure that there's both fluency and comprehension pieces as we go through. And they'll be able to support in a classroom and push in a Zoom and take a small group. They'll also have their own login for certain students, and then students will be reassessed and moved again. So that's the goal, is to support as many kids as we can.
Thank you so much. So a huge priority here at BHUSD is mental wellness. And our next question, I'm going to ask Mr. Bugby to answer from a live at BHUSD perspective. And then I'm going to ask Ms. Kaber to answer it from an ILC perspective, because it's a really important question. It comes from Alex Rotaru. I'm wondering if you could please unmute your microphone and ask your question in relation to one-on-one counseling and what we're providing. Alex, are you with us? Hi.
Yes, yeah, as I was listening to the speaker. So my question is, well, I had 2 questions. The first one is, how do we find out our classroom teacher's name, which I think is, I may have missed an email. But my second question is, in case, pardon?
You can log into your Aries right now.
I see. I understand. And then my other question was, how do we, if our child should need one-on-one counseling because of this modified social interaction, which, as we all agree, is so important, how do we go about that? But I think I asked my question very early on, and you already covered some ground regarding that. I'll still like an answer if you feel like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think next week is the most important time. When you have that one-on-one meeting with the teacher, you can talk it over with the teacher, and they will refer you and your child to the school counselor. Over at Hawthorne, it's Jamie Weddle. And here at Horace Mann, it's Shalani Fernando. So your next week meeting with your teacher, make sure you bring that up if you have concerns.
Thank you. No concerns yet, just a question. Thanks.
Okay.
Ms. Kaber, can you please answer that question for the ILC?
Sure. Our counselors have time in their schedules that are specifically set up. That's why they're doing class lessons every other week instead of every week, is so that they have time in their schedules that's available to meet with students, both ILC students, if that's what's needed. They're available to them still. They're still part of our communities, and they're trained as school counselors. A step before that, just to help provide emotional support, social emotional support, Ms. Terranova is also available to make private appointments, although she doesn't have a counseling degree. So there's a couple of resources there for ILC, including an additional meeting with a teacher. So anything is really available there.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Jonathan Hunt. It's for Dr. Breggy, and it's in relation to the ILC being presented as a second best option and not a primary option. Jonathan, please go ahead and unmute your microphone, and Dr. Breggy, please answer it.
Hi, Ms. Dawkins. Thank you for the opportunity. I think a lot of us have given, with more than one kid in the BHUSD system, have given a lot of thought to what is best for each of them. So we have ended up with one Horace Mann student that we think is going to be better served with ILC, and one doing live BHUSD at BVMS. So we were on the Zoom orientation for BVMS just a day or two ago. And Principal Allen was having some issues with somebody doodling on the slides he was putting up. And he immediately responded, whoever is doing this, if you keep doing this, we will move you to the ILC, which tend to give the impression to the parents and every one of the students on there that the ILC is some kind of dumping ground for problem students. I'd like Dr. Breggy to assure us that that is not the case, and that no staff at BHUSD will give that impression, because obviously with impressionable kids, when the ILC kids eventually come back to physical school, we would not want them to be viewed as second best by their fellow students.
No, 100%, and I was not aware that that happened. So, so thank you for letting me know, so I could find out a little bit more information. You bring up a great point. I mean, there's really, you know, with all the change that's going on, there's sometimes this stigma that's attached to all kinds of things. You know, whether it's you know, whether you are sending somebody back to school, a parent that wants their student to come back, you know, as soon as possible tomorrow, or parents that have said, look, you know, until there's a vaccine, you know, this is the way that this is going to be for our family. And so, and there's sometimes, and it's unfortunate that there's the stigma attached to either decision, and it's really not based on that at all. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because it's really about your learning style and the way that you learn best. Both programs will have the highest level and standard of teaching and being able to get feedback from BHUSD teachers. And so there's no better option. You know, it's really an individual preference as far as, you know, how your children learn best. And so it's the same, you know, the standards of teaching stay the same. So it's just a different delivery model, and it's a different level of interaction. And at the end of the day, our kids, whether they're at live at BHUSD or the ILC, we expect for them to be in the same place when everyone comes back.
Thank you. The next question comes from Diana S. It is in relation to kids being penalized for missing specialist subjects. Mr. Bugby, would you like to take this question? Diana, please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hi, and thank you. I just wanted to know if they are there for their homeroom meeting, but then they happen to miss art or PE, how's that handled?
Remember, we are handling this as we would a regular school day. So we are expecting for everyone to be there. If there's something that comes up, we need for you to communicate with the teacher, but we are handling this like a regular school day.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to flag for anyone who needs to leave the meeting, it is 12 o'clock and we understand. However, we are going to stay on and continue to answer some more questions because we have 75 waiting and this is a really important conversation. But if you need to leave us, please do. Thank you for joining us. Our next question comes from Kelly Hinden. It is in relation to the implementation of PBIS. Kelly, please go ahead and unmute your microphone. And Ms. Cable, will you please answer this question?
Hi, good morning, everyone. So my question is related to PBIS, which I love. And I know that it's going to be a little bit tricky virtually to continue with PBIS. So I was just wondering what the schools are going to be doing to adapt the PBIS program to virtual learning.
Kelly, I'm actually going to interrupt and sorry, Sarah, sorry, Ms. Kaba. Angela Lawyer is on our call and she is the best person to answer this question because she manages all of PBIS and the implementation throughout the district. So Angela, please go ahead and unmute your microphone and if you could answer Kelly's question, please. I see you're in there. Maybe you're having a little bit of trouble. Ms. Kaba, feel free to jump on in.
So yeah, Angela, just feel free to jump in when you are ready. I don't know if you can hear it, but my phone is ringing in the background, so I apologize. PBIS. So it's really important to us, and we had to think on our feet and be agile in the spring to make sure we were continuing it with it. Both schools, I think I can speak for all 4 schools, are continuing with their programs. We're talking about how to implement the ideas and the values that we have, the behavior expectations that we have through distance learning. So you're going to see some of that. You'll see a Husky High Five and what does it look like to follow the Husky High Five or the Hawthorne Hero virtually. You're going to see Zoom expectations sort of laid out in that way, how to be honorable on a Zoom, how to be open-minded on a Zoom, how to be responsible on a Zoom. We're going to frame all of that information right within our PBIS. We're going to do some really explicit teaching of what those behavior expectations are. They're different at each site, but we're going to continue to push them in that way. Elementary schools are going to continue with our morning assemblies on Wednesday morning for whole school for an opportunity for kids and parents to be excited and to honor different things. There's also, we did virtual hero cards in the spring, which I think we're continuing to do at both sites. Sorry, we call them hero cards. I think you call them
Husky High Fives.
Husky High Fives, thank you, sorry. We did virtual ones where teachers could send an email to the kids and say like, hey, I noticed you're doing this thing specific to a behavior expectation. In the younger grades, they took a picture of what those virtual hero cards look like and put them on Seesaw and recorded themselves saying, Kelly, I see you're really working hard and being open-minded to a new way of answering a math question and like posting that up there. So we're continuing to use that as what we're doing. We're also helping our parents. Our plan is to also help our parents to understand how they can participate with home learning, with virtual learning and live at BHUSD being distant by framing it in those same behavior expectations about what we need from parents. So we'll continue to have that conversation.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Diana Reifold-Beckery. Could you please go ahead and unmute your microphone? The question is in relation to state testing. Mr. Bugby, will you please go ahead and answer that? Diana.
Hi, good morning. I'm just curious or good afternoon. I'm just curious if there will be state testing this year and what sort of pressure the kids may expect in reference to possible state testing.
From my understanding, yes, we are moving forward with state testing. Mr. Seaman, do you want to jump in on this? Because you're the big guy on this one.
Mr. Seaman did actually have to step out to another meeting. I apologize.
Okay, so from my understanding, yes. Although we were given a waiver in spring, we are moving forward with state testing this year. I think everyone is going to understand that the scores may not look like they would look in a traditional school setting. So we'll see how we do.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Erica D. It is going to be from Ms. Kaba in relation to the ILC students and how they're being assessed. Erica, please go ahead and unmute your microphone. I'm going to go ahead and ask that question. Will ILC students be assessed at the beginning of the year as well? I think because we talked about live at BHUSD students and how they would be assessed. What's going to be happening for the ILC students, please, Ms. Kaber?
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick, it's after 12 and some of our teachers that who are on here have made other meetings. So thank you to our entire staff who spent some time with us this morning. If you need to log off, thank you for being here to answer questions or being here and not answering questions. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Just want to be able to say goodbye. All of our students are going to be assessed at the beginning of the year. The ILC students will follow the same assessments coming in from live at BHUSD, the assessments that are set out of Ed Services, and with the help of Mr. Seaman, with me and Mr. Bugby, we look through all of them, and also the grade level specialists. We want to make sure that when the ILC students come back into school, whether it's January or it's next year in August, that they're right on track with where they need to be with their peers, and that they're right on track with where they need to be with themselves, because we have data from last year up until March. And so the expectation is that we want to support them in that same way to be able to be successful.
Great, thank you. Our next question comes from Tiffany Nasir. It is about kids being in live learning for so long all day and homework. Tiffany, please go ahead and unmute your microphone, and Mr. Bugby, please feel free to jump in and answer this.
Hi, how are you? I had a quick question. I know that the kids are going to be basically on the computer most of the day. I was just wondering, like, and I understand that kids need homework, but just like because we are in a pandemic and because they have to be on the computer all day, do you think that the teachers would take it a little bit easier on homework? So like when school ends at like around 2:30, they don't have to, again, be doing more schoolwork. Like, I'm just wondering if they'll take it a little bit easier, especially like 7-year-olds.
I wish we had more teachers on here now. Because the homework is left up to individual teachers.
I understand.
We always encourage them to make sure that homework is meaningful, and it depends on what's happening in the classroom, how they assign homework, what groups they assign different homework assignments to. Some kids may need more extra practice just in your basic math facts, whereas other kids may be applying math concepts to constructs of their environment. So this one we're going to leave up to teachers. Ah, I see Miss Goldstein. Go, teacher.
Just like we've been saying this whole time, reach out to your teacher if you're feeling like the burden is just too much because they've been online all day and then there's just a lot of homework. Teachers sometimes don't realize how long it takes, so just reach out to your teacher. I think we're all feeling it. We've all been talking about it. We've been talking about it amongst ourselves, how homework will fit into this when the kids have been online all day doing work. So I encourage you to reach out to your teacher. First, see what it is, because it may just work out fine. And then if you're having an issue, reach out to, and anybody who's listening to this call, reach out to your teacher. We will work with you. We all understand this is a circumstance that, you know, is new, and we'll be flexible and work with you for sure.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Sharon Raban. I'm wondering if you could please go ahead and unmute your microphone. Is in relation to how many times per day the kids will need to dial in for Zoom. Ms. Kaber, will you please answer this question? Or maybe one of our TK or lower grade teachers, maybe Annette, depending on what Sharon has to say. Sharon, please go ahead and unmute your microphone. Some people may have had to leave the call because we are over time. So the question was, how many times per day will the kids have to dial into Zoom? I work full-time from home and have to dial in for 2 kids, 1 in TK and 1 in first grade.
So that will vary on these kids' teacher's schedule. But like I sound like a broken record. Reach out to your teacher and let them know what issues you're having. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be, that's gonna be a challenge, and we hear you. But there will be jumping on and jumping off, and when you have multiple kids, that will be a bigger challenge. But again, reach out to your teacher, tell them what your issues are, and I'm sure there are ways to be flexible.
So we're trying, there's a couple things. One is that we're trying to manage it so that there's blocks and there's availability so that your kiddo could stay on for longer times, either in a breakout group. And especially for those lower grades, TK is going to look a lot like playing. So it could be you're in a breakout group with 3 kids and you want to go play with your Legos. So everybody's sharing what they're doing for Legos, but their Zoom's still on, and then teachers can pull them back in from a breakout group so that there's less of that. But there's also, we're working really hard about how are we consistently placing Zoom links at the same place in their Seesaw so that kids can just click right away and they know that it's the same thing. Our IT staff, both Fidel and Gray, both sites will be working with teachers and specialist teachers to make sure that there's like an emoji so that the kids know that when there's a musical note, that means it's Miss G or Miss Chang. And so that they know what to push and at what time. And then the kindergarten and TK teachers are talking about teaching the kiddos how to use their timer on their iPads. Everything's sort of built in. And so we're building some independence with some understanding that they're 5 and 6 and 7. But we're trying to really work on strategies to build independence and to teach all of those skills. Thankfully, we had teachers that taught summer school that had some experience about what was it like meeting a brand new group of kids and what were the mistakes that they made. We had a small sample size of some mistakes that were made, and we can make some new things for new successes.
Thank you so much. So that brings us to the conclusion of the questions I have. The ones that we haven't answered are super, super specific to a grade level and to a child or a student and what their situation is. So I would really encourage you to reach out to your teachers specifically for those questions that I haven't directed. And in terms of the ILC, please feel free to reach out to Ms. Kaber. skaba@bhusd.org is her email. Mr. Bugby's email is cbugby@bhusd.org. Dr. Breggy, would you like to conclude our meeting today?
Sure. So, you know, I think you've heard today that, you know, we sometimes, when we start talking about, there's so many differences with grade levels and, you know, ways of delivery. In something that Mr. Hunt brought up that he was sharing is, I've been stewing with for a few minutes. And, you know, it really, I'm hoping what you're hearing today is that there are a lot of different methods. You've heard over and over that the best possible thing is to establish that relationship with your child's teacher. That's the most important thing. But even more than that, we are one school district and we are in the middle of a pandemic. And so while it sounds like we're trying to put people in certain places and, you know, we're answering specific questions, I want to assure everybody in this room, we are all working together around the clock, and it's been all summer and it's going to continue. And so our teachers are working together, whether they're in one school site or another school site, or whether it's virtual or whether it's at live BHUSD, we are all working together, and we're going to do everything that we can to ensure that we're communicating. We are one big family, and we're going to be welcoming students back, whether it's 1 at a time or 20 at a time or 100 at a time, because that's our job to do that. And we're going to not stop working until we can assure families and students, this is your home, this is your school district, and it's our job to take care of you. And we're going to take care of every student, no matter what. And we'll continue to work around the clock to come up with resolutions and to keep people as safe as possible. I think what you've heard today is support from the most important place, and that's right in the classroom. And that wraparound support that goes to outside the classroom and specialists and principals, and also the district office, our Board of Education, my cabinet. It's just this wraparound support that a lot of it you don't get to see, but it's there. And we care so much about what's happening right now. And we're not going to stop, and we're going to keep doing what we can to improve it. So I'm hoping we're able to demonstrate that today. Thank you for giving the time that you did today. Excellent, very thoughtful and purposeful questions for us. We appreciate that, and we look forward to continuing this dialogue after we have a great start to our school year. So thank you, everyone, staff, parents, Thank you everyone for being part of the call today. And we look forward to seeing you in person as soon as possible.